Welcome to the Law School Toolbox Podcast. Today we're talking about ways to engage in self-care for the bar exam without breaking the bank. Your Law School Toolbox hosts are Allison Monahan and Lee Burgess. That's me. We're here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. Allison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on iTunes. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started.
Welcome back. Today, we're talking about something that's incredibly important for everyone who's preparing for the bar, which is self-care. Because let's face it, studying for the bar exam is stressful. And actually, so is legal practice. So working on self-care during the bar is something that will probably help you pass and also help you in your career later. And the good news is this doesn't have to be all that complicated or expensive. I mean, it's not just a New Year's resolution about working out 7 days a week or never eating a drop of sugar again. I mean, those might be great goals if it works for you, but self-care is really about simple goals. So today we're going to talk about really realistic, simple things you can do to help yourself feel better and manage the stress and anxiety that comes inevitably when you're studying for the bar exam. So Lee, what's first on your list?
So the first one is definitely cheap and easy, and it's breathing.
Well, we do have to breathe.
We do have to breathe. I mean, we're all alive. We have to breathe. But I think it is something that we tend to ignore. I know that I've found myself ignoring it at various points. When you're working hard or you're stressed, because we actually tend to hold our breath when we get stressed or anxious. And just breathing normally, deeply, and consistency actually gets your brain the oxygen it needs to work properly. And there, of course, are some different kind of breathing techniques we're going to talk about in a second. But I think it is important, you know, if you're sitting at a table while you're listening to this, to take a moment and just think about how you're sitting in your body, because it's possible you are hunched over, which is compressing the front part of your body. And you may find yourself that you're not even taking deep breaths, which means that you are kind of cheating yourself out of one of the things that your body needs to work correctly, but also to calm anxiety and stress. Yeah, it's funny. When you were saying that, I actually was noticing that my shoulders were hunched forward, and right at the bottom, kind of the point of my rib cage, you know, where the ribs come together, I felt like that's where my breath was, you know, which is only about halfway down your lungs. So yeah. I just made an effort to sit up straight and put my shoulders back, and I was like, oh, wow, I am breathing a lot better now. Yeah. I mean, it's really weird when you start to be a little conscious of it, of how poorly we're all doing something that is really essential to life. And, you know, one of the things that most of us want to be doing, but we don't really do, is this idea of belly breathing. If you've ever taken a yoga class, you've probably heard about belly breathing. But basically, 98% of our oxygen receptors are located in the lungs' lower lobes. So that means if you're hunched over your desk, you are totally cheating your body out of that. So I'm only getting 2% of the oxygen I should be getting. Right. So in order to meaningfully trigger your brain's relaxation response, you've got to take deep breaths into your abdomen. And sometimes this can be hard to do when you're sitting, but it's important to recognize that the shallow and quick breathing we often do when we're working can actually trigger the stress response because your body doesn't think you're getting enough oxygen. So if you catch yourself either holding your breath, or if your breath is just lingering at the chest level, you want to take a few of these belly breaths. Some people even recommend that you can imagine your breath has a color, and as you breathe, visualize the color moving through your chest all the way down to the belly. You can put your hand on your belly and start to notice that your belly is moving. If your belly is not moving, breath is not going in and out of it. And then also start to notice while you're doing this breathing, where are you holding stress? Places that most of us hold stress that we never think about is in your jaw. I think unless you've got you've had like, jaw issues. But so often I know when I'm doing yoga or something like that, the teacher would always say like, and make sure that your jaw is relaxed. And then you realize that you're in some crazy pose and my jaw is like all clenched, and you're like, your tongue is compressed, but like it's parts of your body that you don't necessarily notice that you're doing this. So it's like, or are you scrunching your lips? Do your shoulders creep up to your ears? Whatever, just start to like acknowledge what you're doing in your body and see if you can release that tension and think about those points of tension as you breathe. You can do this for a few minutes, a few seconds, but no matter what you do, your brain and your body is going to be better oxygenated. So it's going to be more relaxed and ready to work and memorize things. So it's really funny. It's like something so simple, and yet we're all so bad at it. Most of us are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also something that's useful to take even into the exam room with you. If you're imagining how it's going to be when you take the bar, you're probably not going to be feeling totally relaxed. Yes. Planning ahead of how you're going to handle that situation when they hand the papers out and you turn it over and you start to, feel very anxious, or you get to an essay question or an MBE question and you're not sure what the answer is and you start to feel yourself really getting tense. Even in that scenario, even under time pressure, you can take a couple of deep breaths. It's going to calm your brain, it's going to calm your body, and you're going to be better positioned to actually thoughtfully answer these questions than you are if you're just kind of like a complete, a total stress case who's just like, oh my God, I don't know the answer. And that's going to spiral, and then, probably not great things may happen.
Yeah. We've mentioned it on the podcast before, but there's something very, very simple that they call tactical breathing that the military uses as well, which is very, very simple. You literally breathe in for 4 counts, you hold it for 4 counts, and then you exhale for 4 counts. And this is proven to calm your nervous system. So snipers use this to make their hands not shake. I mean, this is like no joke. I mean, if you think about it, like if they can make their hands stop shaking, like that's pretty powerful stuff. And you can do tactical breathing anytime, anywhere when you feel like you need to kind of calm your nervous system. And so it's a great thing to practice before going into the exam situation because you can call on it in the room. You can time yourself how long it takes to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and breathe out for 4. It's such a small sliver of time, but you're going to make that time back by having calmer nerves and being able to think more efficiently.
Yeah, I've also seen this one referred to, or something very similar referred to as box breathing. So if you envision in your mind as you inhale, you can even draw your finger like up for those counts, and then you're holding, you bring it across, you exhale down, and in this case they have you hold it again at the bottom so your finger meets back where you started. But box breathing, just think of it like a shoebox. If you're like, oh, what was that about? Up, across, down, across, up, across, down, across. Very, very simple. Another one that I've heard about really in yoga classes is alternate nostril breathing. I mean, I assume, have you done this too in a yoga class?
Oh, I actually have a yoga teacher who's pretty obsessed with this. We do it quite a bit, which it does feel very dorky, but it is grounding, and it makes you really like focus on the breath, but you do feel a little silly doing it. So maybe this is one you may not want to do in the library. Although let's be honest, nobody's paying attention to what you're doing in the library. So you could do just about anything. I think
exactly.
People are doing things that are stranger than alternate nostril breathing in the library.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if all you're doing is, it looks like you're kind of holding your nose, what you're really doing is pushing one side or the other. But yeah, I mean, it does feel a little silly, but I've always found it very calming whenever we do it in a yoga class. It kind of balances your brain. It can be good for headaches and things like that. And I think we have a tutorial we can link to in the show notes if people are curious about how it's done. But basically, I mean, the gist of it, as I recall, is you kind of close off one nostril with a finger, you breathe in, you hold it, you switch nostrils, you breathe out. And then you breathe in, hold it, switch nostrils, breathe out. Is that basically accurate?
That's the gist. And I think the idea too is it's making you very aware of the breath, and you're kind of flooding different parts of your head with breath, which can be very powerful. So it's worth trying. Check out the tutorial in the show notes. What have you got to lose? It's free. It's air. You can just try it whenever
you want. It's air and it's free.
Air and it's free. You know what else is free?
May as well
moving
give it a
your
shot.
body. Yeah. It's also the other thing that's free is moving your body. And again, we're talking about realistic goals. So these are like taking breaks to walk around the block. One of the things that I've been doing, because this has been our busy season when we've been right before recording this, so I haven't had a lot of time for my own self-care, is I take a longer walk to get to and from my office, because I can't say like, oh, I have to get there faster because I have to walk a certain way. Like I have to get there. But an extra, if you add an extra 5 or 10 minutes to a walk each way, that's an extra 20 minutes of moving your body a day. And it adds up. So just get a little creative. It doesn't have to be necessarily like grinding at the gym or going to a workout class or things like that. But it's something to think about how you can just add in time to move your body. Your bar schedule should also include time to do things like exercise. It's very important. But a lot of students find that that can seem very overwhelming, to try and find time to go to the gym, or they're too tired, or they're cold, or it's raining, or they're busy. I mean, there can be a multitude of things. So park your car farther away from the library. Exactly. When you walk to the library.
Yeah, I think starting with baby steps is probably a good way to go. I mean, this is probably not the time to start training for a marathon if you've never run more than a mile before. I mean, I definitely agree on the walking. I think walking, particularly if it's in either a natural environment or even in a city environment where, there's interesting stuff to look at, can be a really great way to refresh your brain. And also get a little bit of exercise. I mean, for me, I made sure that my post office box where I got packages was, maybe a half mile from where my office was, so that I could go and collect my package and also get some fresh air. And if you take a walk with people, it can be great. I mean, my mother loves to go probably daily, really, either hiking or walking around the neighborhood with her friends, and that's their social occasion. And they're also getting outside and getting some exercise. I mean, just basic moving, even if it's you put on some music. When I was in law school, we were notorious in my apartment because our kitchen faced a light well where a bunch of other people's kitchens. The entire building was law students' apartments. But we would, when we were all really stressed out and studying a lot, we would actually put on like really music that we just loved in the kitchen when we were making food or something. And like the kitchen was tiny. It was New York City. And the 3 roommates would all be dancing around wildly in the kitchen, and all these other people were watching us. But it was fun. It was free. It was easy. We were making dinner anyway. We just had to occasionally stir something. But it was actually a fun time. And I think it really helped to relieve stress.
Yeah. Something we talked about in a recent podcast episode too was if you're really feeling strapped for cash, it's a great time to try sometimes these unlimited exercise packages that can come up, or free trials that can come up for 30 days of yoga for $30, or try the gym.
When I was studying for the bar, I did an unlimited yoga package for the month beforehand, and I literally went at least twice a day, to the point where they were like, what's going on here? Why are you here every day, like in the morning and in the evening? I'm like, oh, I'm studying for the bar exam. And they're like, great, do you think you should add in lunchtime too? But I definitely got my money's worth with that month-long package.
Yeah. So again, it can take being a little bit creative, but especially if you're somewhere where the weather's not very good while you're studying, finding a place where you can do an inside exercise activity to move your body might be critical.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make you feel better. I mean, I know for me, I always kind of dread like, oh, I just can't be bothered. I have so much stuff to do. I really just don't want to go today. And then I get to this place that I go, which I really love, and then I start working out. And I'm like, why didn't I want to come? Like, this is great. Yeah. I should do this more often. So I think, you kind of have to trick yourself a little bit sometimes, or either trick yourself into going by just committing to it, or you have to acknowledge that, okay, the way that I feel about this before I go is not the way that I will feel when I'm there, and I'll be happy I'm there once I'm there.
Yeah, and you just have to work it into your bar to-do list. And let's be honest, going to whatever class you've signed up for is probably going to be more fun than studying.
True. This is true.
The bar is very low in bar exam time.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Pretty much anything's probably going to be more enjoyable than studying for the bar.
Yeah. But I think if price is becoming and cost is becoming the thing that's prohibitive to you, ask around. A lot of times if you're studying for the February bar, almost every exercise outlet has some sort of New Year package waiving some sort of fee, something. Sometimes they have cleaning exchanges. You can see if you could, do an hour of work around the gym to be able to be there for the whole month, whatever it might be. Ask questions because you want to incorporate this as you're going to be happier and healthier. You're not going to get sick as often, which is also very important when you're studying for the bar. So taking good care of yourself doesn't have to be costly, but it literally can just be taking the long route home when you're walking home.
Exactly. And I think just thinking of ways to incorporate more pleasant activities into your day, whether it's walking to get your mail or, whatever it might be, that's totally fine. You have time to do that. You can't actually study 18 hours a day every day for the bar exam. You're going to have plenty of time to, take a few minutes, go to the gym, take a walk, do whatever it is. And in a way, like you can kind of take advantage of that time by building it in, and then you're going to come back refreshed to your study. Yeah.
Maybe you got a Fitbit for one of your last holidays or an Apple Watch or something. Some people really love tracking things like this. Sometimes you can even set, realistic goals if you want to have like walking or activity goals, and you can use that to kind of hold yourself accountable. Some people even come up with situations where they have rewards. If you hit your certain steps for 5 days of the week, you get to go get a mani-pedi or something like that. I would guess that, not everybody, that's the first reward that came to mind for me, but maybe that's because I'm sitting here going like, wow, you really need a mani-pedi. But,
tell me about it.
I know. But whatever it might be, or you get that, you get to go get your favorite burrito for dinner. You get to go to the movies. Like, you can come up with lots of different almost games that you can play with yourself. I've never been like a huge like Fitbit tracker person, but my husband has one. And what's funny is when we were together this weekend, and I'm always like, how many steps did we do like today? He's like, didn't you have one of these? I was like, yeah, I don't know where it is. I haven't worn it in like a year. I don't know if it made it through the last move, but it's funny because I'm like obsessed with his number tracking because I'm like, well, if we've been together all day, our numbers have to be about the same. So I don't know. They can be fun.
Yeah, some people are very motivated by sort of gamification of their life. Unfortunately, that's never really done much for me. But hey, if it works for you, fantastic.
Yeah, I just went and saw David Sedaris give a reading. He wears a Fitbit and an Apple Watch so he can compare the two.
See, I would do that just because I would be like, why are they different? Like, what's going on here?
I know.
Like, I would find that part interesting. I just wouldn't care what the actual number was.
Right, exactly. I know. Okay, something else that is free that you may think is a little kooky, but is laughing. So your brain is very smart, but it's also pretty gullible. So even if you're in the depths of bar exam despair, your brain doesn't really have to know it, because smiling and laughing, even when we're faking it, tricks our brain into thinking we're full of joy. And the brain actually creates serotonin. Serotonin is our very own built-in antidepressant, painkiller, stress reducer, brain booster. So you've got to like load up on smiling as laughing. They've actually seen that this can be productive in cancer research, helping cure cancer. And so it can definitely help you study for the bar. This can be watching a funny TV show, smiling to yourself for no reason at all. You can watch funny things on the internet. We can link to a bunch of videos about kittens. It's a good place to start. I had a yoga teacher who did this training in laughing yoga. And so we would go sit in this class. I think it was actually a prenatal yoga class. There was a bunch of like pregnant ladies sitting around doing laugh. I mean, we probably looked like it was probably the funniest thing. Somebody should have like YouTubed it. But she was actually talking about birth, which is a stressful situation. But that some people, she was also a doula, and she's like, some people can laugh through parts of birth to like get through difficult things because it just tricks your brain. I can honestly say I do not believe I laughed during the birth of my son, but hey, maybe I could have tried it if I really needed that moment. But there are a lot of people who just think like sitting around and laughing. And actually after a while you feel really ridiculous. And then the longer you force yourself to laugh, you eventually actually do start laughing because it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
and now you can all picture me sitting pregnant in a room with everybody laughing around us. It was kind of silly.
It sounds pretty comical, I have to say.
Yeah,
but yeah,
moments.
Yeah, I think this is a great tip because it could just be the difference between watching a depressing movie or series in the evenings and watching something that you find legitimately funny. Like if you're studying for the bar, you probably shouldn't be watching really heavy, depressing stuff. You should probably be watching light, funny things because it's actually going to help your brain.
I know. It's true. In fact, we've talked a lot. We're going to talk a little bit about sleep, but sleep is another thing you want to focus on. And I find I have to be really careful about what shows I watch like right before bed because if they are not, they're super intense. Like it does not set yourself up to feel good to like wind down. So my husband and I were behind, but we just tried to check out The Night Of. Have you watched this?
Nope.
I think it's on HBO. Anyway, it's quite good. It's about this guy who's, I believe he's wrongfully accused of killing a young woman. And he's Muslim and there's a lot of issues about how that plays into his incarceration and things like that. But it's not exactly light watching. It was basically the other night.
I'm like, sound like it.
I was like, we can watch this another time, but I cannot do this before bed anymore because it was the opposite of the laughing therapy. It was oh my gosh, like I'm super stressed. Like all I can think about is like how awful some of the scenario is, and that's not going to help me. Yeah. So got to be conscious about what you're doing, but maybe if I should sit in my room and laugh after watching something like that, maybe make a difference.
Yeah. No, I for sure had to stop watching The Wire before I went to sleep because it was just way too intense. But I do remember I think between this when California still had the 3-day bar. So between the second and third days of the bar exam, I was just so burned out. And I was just like, I cannot like even think about studying or anything right now. And I remember turning on the TV and they had Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. And so I sat and watched that movie and I was just like cracking up alone in my hotel room. But maybe that helped me pass the bar. Who knows?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think I watched Happy Feet during lunch one day during the bar, which I think is like a Disney or Pixar movie about like dancing penguins. Mm-hmm. But it was really good, like bar entertainment.
Yeah, so think about your media consumption basically during this study period.
Yeah, or books. I actually had a book with me that I was reading during the bar exam when California was a 3-day bar. And the night before the last one, I realized the plot was shifting and somebody was going to get cancer and it was going to be really sad. God. And so it was like this light bulb turned on and I was like, I am closing this book and putting it away. I was like, because that is not what I need.
Yeah, like right where's now. My Cosmo?
Exactly. I was like, People Magazine, where are you? Basically, yeah. Okay, something else for free, which is very connected to the breathing, is trying mindfulness. So mindfulness is something that we've talked about here on the podcast before, but it's really the practice of being fully, gently conscious and present without judgment or reaction. Practicing mindfulness through meditation helps you relax your brain, clears out the clutter, builds memory, energy, resilience, and immunity. If you have not realized that meditation or mindfulness is good for you, all you have to do is like Google it. And there's like a bazillion studies now that are supporting that some sort of mindfulness practice is good for you. But if this is something you've never done, sometimes there can be a community center or yoga studio that will do some mindfulness training. You can download a ton of apps on your phone that will help you through walking through meditation. It's something worth trying. Some people find it really life-changing. A lot of people find it as a way to manage stress and anxiety during the bar. A lot of people find it as a way to refocus during the bar exam. I have had students, especially with those who have extended time, even having memorized meditations to try and refocus their brain. If focus is one of the things that they struggle with. So it can be pretty powerful stuff. So you want to consider learning more about it. And it's just your mind. Or maybe you buy an app and it's like $1.99. Not so bad.
Yeah, or there's a book that I read repeatedly, actually, in law school. It was what I read before going to sleep because I found it very calming, which could actually be totally ideal for the bar exam scenario because it's called The Places That Scare You, which I think almost anyone who walks into the bar exam, if they're being honest, probably is going to admit to being a little bit frightened. Totally normal. But it's by Pema Chandran, and it's a very sort of readable intro to a particular type of Buddhist practice. But I found it really helpful, and I think it's, again, like these are just techniques that you can employ in these situations that do have, a pretty strong basis in science and medicine. People are really starting to understand why they work, but, the reality is they do work. I think some people, when they start practicing mindfulness, can have some pretty strong reactions, to things that maybe they haven't necessarily dealt with in the past or whatever it is. So if you find that happening for you, the bar exam period might not be the best time to take this up, but there are different types. Maybe you could find a guided meditation that you just find relaxing, that isn't asking you to, delve into like the depths of your brain or your psyche.
Right.
So I think there, if one thing doesn't work for you, like a sitting meditation doesn't work, but maybe you can meditate while you're walking, on a mantra or something like that. There are lots of different ways you can do this, but I think a lot of them are going to be really beneficial and good skills that you can use for the bar exam and for your life.
Yeah. Sometimes I find, especially when I'm really busy or I've been working really hard, that even just like taking a walk with like no earbuds in, so you're not listening to music, you're not listening to a podcast, just in silence can just be so calming. I think we sometimes forget how inundated we are with noise and thoughts and things like that. So it really could be something as simple as like, I'm going to choose to take the long walk home and not engage in something else. I'm just going to...
Yeah, or even just going to your favorite coffee shop where it's a comfortable environment and you maybe have passersby that you can watch or eavesdrop on or whatever. And just kind of letting your brain wander, not bringing your bar books and not looking at your phone, and just kind of sit there. I mean, we so rarely just sit around for 20 minutes anymore because, the second you sit down at a coffee place, usually it's like, where's my phone? Who's trying to get in touch with me? What email do I have? What's new on Facebook? What's new on Twitter? What's new on Instagram? And that doesn't allow your brain to relax, So just going and like sitting with a pot of tea or a cup of coffee and just drink it. Like that alone could be a meditation.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day when I was waiting in line somewhere, and I'm like, I guess I just used to wait in line, like 10
we
years
used to
before.
Just stand there. Yeah, we would just stand there and like look around and see what was going on, and maybe be like, "Ooh, that guy's kind of cute. Like, I wonder if he's a girlfriend."
Totally. It is funny how, and that was only like 10 and 11 years ago. I mean, it's amazing how things have changed. You can even do something even like super crazy and like turn your phone off. Whoa.
Or leave it at home. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The other night I went out to dinner for the evening and I left my phone at home and it was really lovely.
On purpose?
It was really lovely. No, on accident. But it was lovely once I didn't have it with me.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we all managed to survive like not that long ago without being constantly connected to the internet. It's really doable.
Yeah. No, the funny thing was I had so much of my kids' junk in my purse that my purse was so heavy I couldn't tell that my phone wasn't in it. Because I had like a toy airplane and a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, I look at my purse, I'm like, I don't even have where's my stuff? I have like why I had my like husband's extra glasses. I'm like, where's my stuff in my bag?
Well, maybe simplifying your bag could be a next step.
I know. Maybe that's my next meditation.
In fact, I think actually like simplifying your life in general when you're studying for the bar is a great way to do self-care, because the less clutter you have to be thinking about and carrying around and all of these things, like just, it's amazing every time I look in a bag that I carry regularly, how much crap is in there. And you realize like, okay, I probably need some of these things that are in my personal pharmacy, but I probably don't need, say 4 things of Kleenex and 4 things of mosquito repellent. Like probably one of each would do. I could just get rid of it. And even that, like you just feel lighter and easier to focus, and, you can kind of approach your whole life like that. I mean, I think, figuring out, like, for some people, maybe this is a good distraction, figuring out your kitchen situation or like cleaning out your kitchen. I mean, as long as you just limit the time that you do that, it could be a very beneficial thing to do while you study.
That's true. All right. Something else that we've clearly both have done a lot of is yoga. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you don't have access to a yoga studio, maybe it's hard to get to, or you're not in an area where there's a lot of yoga. Now there's a bunch of online yoga that's even pretty cheap. And we'll link to one option in the show notes. It's called yogaglow.com. But you can do yoga at home. And I know people who do this and really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think the studio that I went to in San Francisco all the time actually has a class online, or like I guess a bunch of classes. So it would be almost like, if I put it on the TV, I'd be almost like I was in the class.
Yeah.
It might not be perfect, but it's a pretty good substitute.
Yeah, it's better than not doing
anything.
Exactly. And some yoga poses, something as simple as child's pose, can just calm the nervous system. That's what it's there for. And so if you're into yoga, you also might look for restorative yoga classes or workshops, because that can be just a very calming, meditative, relaxing hour and change. And you might find that that's exactly what you need. Also, one of the things I love about yoga is because it's one of the few times in my week that I bend my body in ways that do not include standing or sitting, basically.
True.
And I think sometimes what I really, we were talking about breathing and expanding your torso and your space, but the first time you bend backwards, I was like, oh, it's so refreshing. It's why don't I bend backwards more often? And so these little movements that we don't do as part of our daily life, can be just that feels so good, because your body's thank you for not you moving me in this very repetitive way, every day, all the time. So that's one of the things I really like about it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think I like the fact that you can, depending on what you need at that moment, you can pick a different type of class. So if you're really stressed out, feeling really drained, maybe the restorative class is perfect. But if you just I feel like you can't get going and you just can't, make yourself do anything, and you can't drag yourself off to study, then maybe you need to do a more intense class that kind of jump starts you. So you can kind of calibrate, what kind of experience you need at that moment. And that can be very beneficial, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, all of this has really been about taking breaks, right? That's something else that's free, right, is to just take a break. Because studying too long in a day, studying too long during the week, and not taking breaks is a terrible idea. It leads to burnout and you're not studying effectively. You should schedule breaks not only to go do the stuff that we've been talking about, but also taking breaks with friends and family, scheduling dinners out, going to the movies, doing whatever you do to make yourself feel good and connected is very important. And I would recommend that you schedule them and put them on your calendars so they don't become, optional. They're part of what you're doing while you're studying.
Right. And I think on that point, you need to think about sort of micro and macro level breaks. So, how many hours can you reasonably commit to studying in one day? Figure out what that number is. And then around that, you plan in dinner with your friends, going to the movies, something with your husband. But then also, even within that time frame, it's not realistic to think that you're going to sit down and study continuously for 8 hours. Or even continuously for 4 hours. I think most people are a lot more productive when they study, say, 45 minutes and then take a 10 or 15 minute break and then come back and do another portion of an hour and then take another break. People can feel guilty. And of course, you have to sort of, enforce mechanisms to ensure that your 15-minute break does not go to 50 minutes. But within that, I think think it's okay you don't have to sit and try to focus for 4 straight hours. That's probably just not realistic. It's probably not even realistic on the day of the bar exam. It's fine to get up and get a drink of water every hour or go to the bathroom. You're not tied to your seat. You're allowed to get up for 5 minutes. It's fine. Yeah,
I think that's true. And, we even talk about with our tutoring students, taking breaks, in the exam period too.
Right.
It can be doing one of the breathing exercises we've talked about, or it can be going to the bathroom or washing your hands or getting a drink of water. But sometimes breaks are really, really important. So you need to practice taking them to find out which breaks serve you. and how long you can focus. Some people can do an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours without needing to get up. Some people can only make it 45 minutes. And that's no judgment. But if you know that about yourself, then you need to stand up every 45 minutes.
I'm definitely a 45-minute person. That's why I love the circle. That's why I love the circles technique. I'm like, if I can focus 45 or 50 minutes, I'm having a really productive hour. So that's all I can ask of myself. And I know that, and I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah. All right. One of the other super easy and free things, as long as you don't drink the bottled version, is to drink a lot of water. So water, like breath, is something that we all need to survive, but we can not take in enough of it. So it turns out your brain's about 85% water.
Wow.
So give it a lot of water.
Yeah.
Although caffeinated beverages have water, I don't think those things count.
I was going to say, I'm not sure that water can take the form of tea and coffee only, or you're probably going to get a pretty bad headache by the end of the day because you're probably dehydrated. Yeah. So, you know, no, I mean, again, no judgment. You have whatever caffeine you want. But, if you have a cup of tea or if you have a cup of coffee or whatever, have some water with it or after it so that you're titrating that and you're not just diluting your brain of the water it needs to function. And same with food. I mean, if you're studying a lot, I always found myself absolutely famished, even though I was just sitting there. But it's because your brain is using a ton of glucose. And you actually need, you may need to think about different snacks and things that maybe aren't what you would normally think of as healthier food. I mean, sometimes for me, I would just have to have something like ridiculous, like gummy bears, because my brain literally needed a sugar hit. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's what I would do, like, every hour of the day for my entire life. But sometimes in the middle of, the third hour of a study session, it was just like, I just need some candy. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Or even chocolate covered almonds, which gives you like fat and sugar together, can be really productive. But even learning what are your best snacks can be very effective.
Yeah.
What makes you feel better, what gives you that jolt. As you get closer to the exam, you're going to need to practice not eating for like the 3 to 3.5 hours, depending on how your exam is set up. Because, if your body's like, oh, I'm used to getting my gummy bear every hour and there's no gummy bear, your body's
the bar. Sorry.
Right. You can't smuggle your gummy bears in, but I think during study, you have to be very conscious of when you're hungry and when your energy is starting to dip. And, I'll be honest, I'm going to get lunch after this and nobody wants to be in that meeting with my next meeting until I've eaten some food. So.
No, they've even done studies of judges that show they're much harsher right before lunch and at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right. And last, but definitely not least, is sleep. So even lawyers to be, we are all animals and, we need to sleep. We cannot pull all-nighters. They are our worst enemy when it comes to the bar exam because sleep deprivation decreases cognition and concentration. It increases your irritability, your blood pressure, you name it. So you need to sleep as often as you can throughout your study process. So you want to get off the screens, maybe at least 30 minutes before bed. You can switch your phone or your computer to the red light. You can get the things that put the filters on your computer. You can get the things that put the filters on your computer to filter out the blue light. You can wear those goofy glasses to filter out blue light if it's something that really affects you. But, be conscious that your devices are not helping you get some rest. And you may drink a lot of caffeine, but it's probably a good idea to try and save that for the morning. If you're someone who has it interfere with sleep because you don't want to be up, all hours of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is another place exercise can really come into play because if you do vigorous exercise during the day, you're probably going to be tired at night. It's going to be a lot easier to fall asleep. I mean, I'm definitely a person who has always had sleep issues and insomnia and all of these things. And I really find that one of the biggest differences for me is if I do some vigorous exercise, I just literally can't stay awake. And so that can really help, if you're struggling. And I think if you're really struggling to sleep, this is an area to get help in, whether it's a doctor or whoever it is, because it's not going to get better as you get closer to the bar exam. And you want to make sure that you are getting that restorative sleep that's enabling you to learn and remember things.
Yeah, exactly. So don't ignore it. No sleep doesn't ever go anywhere good, basically. No. I mean, it makes you, driving and things like, I think even 1 or 2 nights of sleep deprivation are as bad as being very drunk. So imagine taking the bar exam, completely drunk. That's basically what you're doing if you're not sleeping. Yeah. Another thing to think about is, let's say you're living with a bunch of roommates. I'm a big proponent of the white noise machine that can solve, distractions, especially if you're in a city and there could be noise outside that could wake you up, or your roommates are loud, or you're trying to go to bed earlier than other people in your house. Investing in a nice white noise machine can really do wonders to help you get some extra sleep.
Yep, or noise canceling earphones, although those are definitely not cheap. But regular earphones, you can find some really pretty decent earphones at, your local drugstore for not very much money. And a decent set of, you can look on the package, it has a number that tells you like, oh, these are more blocking. Get the blocking ones. Like the more blocking, the better, but they're cheap. You can afford it.
Yeah. And if it helps you sleep and focus, totally worth it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, I think we are about out of time because it's lunchtime for us, or at least for me.
Ooh, I'm getting a little hungry, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get some water. I'm going to get some good food. It's going to be nice. If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox Podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Remember, you can check out more bar tips on our sister site, barexamtoolbox.com. And we also have helpful resources and courses and tutoring for those who are studying for the California and UBE bar exams. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Allison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.